Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jason Scorza, Associate Provost for Global Learning here at Fairleigh Dickinson University. It's my great pleasure to welcome you today for the first of what I hope will be a series of events looking at the politics, the culture, and the society of Tibet. Today we are grateful to have a group from the China Tibetology Research Center of Beijing joining us for a discussion of peaceful liberation in Tibet and the Dalai Lama's political status. We are grateful to Professor Zhengbin Sun of Fairleigh Dickinson University and Dr. Shuming Liu of CUNY, Brooklyn College, for assisting us in organizing this event. And of course, we are very grateful for our invited guests. We'll be hearing first a lecture from Dr. Wang Xiaobin, and we will then have a discussion including members of the audience and our panel, which includes Professor Zheng, Professor of Religious Studies, Dr. Nanjia Cairang, editor of the Chinese Press of Tibetology Research, and Professor Sangding Cairen, Associate Professor of Tibetology Research. And they're joined by their interpreter this afternoon, Ms. Huang Wenjuan. Now, those of us in the West know surprisingly little about Tibet, at least very little that we can say we know with absolute certainty. We know more or less where Tibet is located. It is a plateau region in Central Asia, just north of the Himalayas. But beyond that, we can't even say with absolute certainty what the boundaries of Tibet are. These have been contested and debated for centuries. We know the Tibetan language is related to the Chinese language. How closely related? Again, a subject for debate and dispute. We know that from roughly the 7th century to the 20th century, that Buddhism was the official religion of Tibet. But we're unclear what the status of Buddhism is in Tibet today. We know that the first Dalai Lama was recognized by a Mongolian ruler in the 16th century. And we know that there have been 14 Dalai Lamas in total, each succeeding the previous, and each assuming an extremely important political, cultural, and religious role within Tibet. We know that China, First Imperial China, exercised considerable influence and dominion over the region of Tibet until the end of the last imperial dynasty in the 20th century. We know that after the fall of the last dynasty, the 13th Dalai Lama attempted to assert Tibetan independence and autonomy. And we know also that in 1950, the People's Republic of China asserted sovereignty over Tibet. We know that the 14th Dalai Lama lives in exile and that he is head of something called the Tibetan government in exile. But we don't know for sure what the agenda of the Tibetan government in exile is. Is it Tibetan independence? Is it an independent sovereign state? Is it an autonomous or semi-autonomous region within Tibet? Again, this is uncertain. I believe that our presentation and discussion today will raise more questions, perhaps, than they answer, but they will certainly help us raise the right questions about Tibet, its past, its present, and its future. And I'd like to pause over the question of Tibet's future just for a moment. Our discussion will surely include a lot of debate about what happened. History is a frustrating thing, though, and we can't always put our finger on exactly what happened. particularly when we ask questions like, was Tibet ever autonomous? What is the historical relationship between China and Tibet? All of these questions can be debated on both sides. However, when we think about the future of Tibet, I think we hopefully can come to share a set of aspirations, aspirations for a peaceful Tibet, aspirations for a prosperous Tibet, aspirations for a Tibet where people are free to practice their religion and preserve their culture. So let us, while talking about the past, discussing the present, also think about the future and what we might aspire to. And without further preamble, I would like to call Dr. Wang to the lectern. Sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to give my presentation here. I have good feeling today. Many specialists and students are very kind to me. I believe nobody threw bad eggs, tomatoes to me. So I'm very excited. But my English, my oral English and my listening is very poor. I can read and write. So I want to apologize for that. But I want to give my presentation as possible as I can. My topic is peaceful liberation in Tibet and the 14th Dalai Lama's political status in Tibet. There exists considerable confusion about original attitude of the 14th Dalai Lama to the Central People's Government and his present attitude. Today afternoon, I want to talk about this change of attitude with some historical documentation. There are three parts in my presentation. First of all, I will start by describing 13 process of 13th Dalai Lama's reincarnation. That's Lama Dunzhu, now present Dalai Lama. Then I'll speak of power struggle surrounding confirmation as 14th Dalai Lama. Finally, I concede the peaceful liberation in Tibet was beneficial to the 14th Dalai Lama. Now, the first part of my presentation, I want to talk about that. The Qinghai province holy boy Lama Dunzhu was confirmed as the reincarnation of 13th Dalai Lama. My talk begins with the 13th Dalai Lama's death. After that, Gaxia confirmed Living Buddha written as the regent. Here I want to introduce Gaxia is the Tibetan, mean Tibetan government. It's a Tibet local government. That's its meaning. Gaxia. The Gaxia confirmed the written Living Buddha as the regent. Everybody remembers this name, Written. Written is the name of Living Buddha. And at the same time, the government confirmed one relative of 13th Dalai Lama's as the assistant regent. What the regents were urgent to do was to search for next new Dalai Lama.